Cooking with Kevin. Today we'll explore some of the Italian secrets in one of my favorite recipes, stuffed peppers with the side of garden fresh green beans, and to top it off, some of my famous light lemon bars. All of these are original recipes which can be found on our website. Today we'll be using all fresh ingredients which I get from Roth's Fresh Markets. These have all been pre-measured, but I will let you know what the measurements are when we're cooking so that you'll be able to recreate this at home. First, we'll start with cutting and pitting the peppers. There's a secret to getting the seeds out with minimal effort. We'll show you right here. Right now we have a choice of green, yellow, or orange peppers. Green tends to have a little bit more of a bitter taste, but some people prefer it. Yellow is more of a mild taste and orange is a sweet. So I tend to do 2, 2, and 2. That way you get everyone's tastes in mind. You start by cutting off the top, and then you take that top off, and then you cut in the middle here. I'll demonstrate right over here on the cutting board. So you cut straight down, and then you take the knife around the edges here, and you pull out the core. See how most of the seeds are stuck to that core, so then you won't have any leftovers. Then take water and pull out some of the pieces, the white pieces from the inside, and what other excess seeds. And you'll notice a perfectly cored out pepper that we'll get to later. So now you'll see that there are 3 different kinds. Like I said earlier, this is more of a sweet pepper, this is more mild, and this has more of a bitter taste. But everyone has their likes and dislikes for peppers, so I like to do 2 of each, and you put them into the water. And you see that it submerges when you fill up that inner core. And we're going to cook them just 10 minutes in this hot water to pre-cook them, so that way when they're in the oven for the additional 25 minutes later on, they won't get overcooked. They'll be just right when they come out. Now we're going to make the sauce from scratch. We'll start with a little bit of olive oil. You can use butter too, but I prefer olive oil. It's a little bit healthier that way. And then we're going to go right over here and do about 1/3 of an onion, smaller onion. Then we'll turn it to about 5, and that should be hot enough to get the onions sauteing in the oil. And what you'll do is you'll stir them around until they get kind of a brownish tint to them and come almost clear. Once that happens, we'll add the meat and the garlic. As you can see, the onions are starting to brown a little bit, and we're about ready to add the meat. So what I'm going to do is I'll put in this meat here. I'll use the spatula so that I don't get my hands dirty on the meat. You kind of want to break it up. And at this time I'll throw in the garlic too. It's 1 clove's worth. That will help season the beef for the sauce. So we'll cook this until it's brown. Then we'll start adding the ingredients for the sauce. You don't want to leave any kind of big chunks, so you want to make sure it all gets cooked. It's never a good thing when someone who's expecting fully cooked meat gets a little surprised with some red meat coming in through their meal. So once we get the sauce made, we'll start stuffing the peppers and putting them over in a casserole dish. And we'll sprinkle some cheese on the top and cook it for about 25 minutes at 350. So if you want to at this time, you can get the oven preheated to 350 degrees. While it's cooking, then we'll start the green beans. The green beans take about 30 minutes to simmer, so it will be just about right. The peppers will be coming out, green beans will be getting finished.
That red, green, and orange peppers are actually ripened green peppers. And as peppers grow, the red ones are more sweeter because as they ripen, they become more sweet. Yeah, I didn't know that either. If you want a fresh, ripe pepper, I would suggest going to your local farmer's market as they're freshly picked every day. Alright, one final thought is, bell peppers have this recessive gene that eliminates capsaicin, which obviously is a spicy gene. So enjoy your El Pepe Cabanas. Do you know I can speak Italian, did you, Kevin? Haha.
Alright, the meat is almost finished here. Okay, so now what we'll do is we're going to add about 1 can, 16 ounces of stewed tomatoes. Okay? What I always like to do is after I add that, I put in some tomato paste. It kind of gives it like a richer, thick texture. I do 1 small can of tomato paste. It may not look like a lot when you put it in, but it spreads because it's being joined with the meat juices too. You might need to cut up a little bit of the stewed tomatoes so they're not too big of chunks. So now you stir it until it's pretty well stirred in. Then we'll get about 1 teaspoon of basil. You can do fresh or dried. I do dried because you never know how weather will affect the growing of fresh basil. So then you stir that in. The smell of basil, I love it. And then we'll do 1/2 teaspoon of oregano. You want to kind of sprinkle it in with your fingers if possible, that we can get even distribution. You'll see that it's starting to get kind of a thick red texture to it. That should happen. It means that the tomato paste is starting to bring it together and become rich. I like to use sea salt. You don't necessarily have to. Just do a couple sprinkles around, and probably about a 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. Afterwards, let everyone season to taste, because you don't want to make it too salty or too peppery, so I always like to go on the more cautious side. Just put enough to give it some flavor. As you can see, some of these stewed tomatoes are still a little large, so I'm separating them just a tiny bit. Alright, so now we'll let this simmer for about 5 minutes, just to get those stewed tomatoes cooked a little bit more. Then we'll add the rice. Make sure it's instant rice so that it doesn't come out crunchy with the meal. It is now ready. We'll add the rice here. It's about 1/2 cup instant brown rice. I go with brown rice because it hasn't been dyed. It has more of the essential vitamins that rice naturally has in it. But you don't necessarily have to use brown rice. Do 1/2 cup. You'll make kind of a ricey mixture. You'll see that it suddenly thickens up. That's normal. Alrighty, so we'll let that simmer on low now. So we'll put the temperature down to low. We'll let it simmer for another 5 to 10 minutes just so that the rice gets starting to get tender. And then we'll stuff the peppers and put the cheese on top. Alright, so this is now ready. So now what we'll do is we'll get our casserole dish here. Get a dish about this size. And we'll scoop these peppers up into it. Careful, it could be a little hot. All right. So now, to the fun part. So what we're going to do now is we're going to scoop up some of this mixture into each of the peppers. Kind of do it evenly. And once you kind of each have some with some sauce in it, then you'll go back with what's left in the pan and top them off. Depending on the size of peppers you're using, you may have to make a double batch of the sauce. As it is, it looks like I'm going to be just fine. You don't want them to be too full. Part of the fun thing about stuffed peppers is the way you eat them. You cut them straight down the side, sauce oozes out. Alright, there we are. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to take some mozzarella cheese. You don't necessarily have to do mozzarella cheese. I like it because it melts better and it's not as strong flavored, so it's more just for decoration. There we go. Alright, so now we're going to put them in the oven. Remember, 350 degrees. Put them on the center rack right in the middle. And we'll cook it for 25 minutes. Alright, so now we're going to go right over here and get the green beans going. We'll rinse them. And we're going to now break them off. So you'll see that there's these stem things on it. So you break it. I like to leave the other end on for decoration. You'll see that it kind of has a point. See, it leaves a point. But the other end should come off. kind of do a twist motion. It helps to kind of make it pop. Alright, so now we got these done. What we're going to do is we're going to take this pan and put about 2.5 tablespoons of butter in. It's about this much. Alright, so now that the pan's on the stove with the butter, we'll do about 1/3 of an onion. And we're going to chop it up finely. We want it chopped finely so that it will cook easily and quickly in the butter. We want it sauteed just like we did for the meat. It will get slightly brown tint to it and become somewhat clear. Alright, so throw this in here, butter. Now we'll get this sauteing. While we're waiting, we'll send it over to Kelsey. She's going to give us a little history lesson on the lemon.
Thank you, Kevin. Did you know that the lemon has been around since the 1st century AD, and that women back in the European Renaissance time would use the lemon juice to redden their lips? Did you know that the lemon tree, each one produces about 500 to 600 pounds of lemon a year, and they bloom and produce fruit all year round? The U.S. receives approximately 95% of its lemon crop from California and Arizona. Lemons have many uses. When you have a sore throat, it's equal parts lemon juice to hot water, and it makes for a perfect antibacterial gargle. You can use lemons for chicken and fish, or even in drinks such as lemonade or iced tea, and even in desserts such as lemon meringue pie, cookies, or even lemon bars. Back to you, Kevin.
Thank you, Kels. So as you can see now, the onions are becoming a slightly tannish tint to them. And what we'll do now is we're going to add a little bit of water. And it's about 1/4 cup of water. Then we'll throw in these beans. Then we'll put in some bacon, about 1.5 tablespoons. Stir it in, it kind of gives it a little punch. And I prefer to use the jarred real bacon. It has less fat and grease that way, but you can do real bacon in the pan if you wish. Once that's complete, put the top on, and we'll put it onto low and simmer it for 30 minutes. Once you can take a fork and go right through it, it is ready. It turns out that the peppers are finished, so what we're going to do is take them out. The way you know if they'll finish is they'll start getting kind of a wilted look to them on the edge, and some might even start getting kind of a brownish tint. And the other test is you can take a knife and you'll notice that it goes right in. You still want it to be a little bit resistant when you pop it in initially, because you don't want it to be limp. You want there to be a little bit of a crunch when you bite into it.
Here's a tip for the stuffed green peppers. Instead of using ground beef, you can save some calories by using ground turkey.
Alright, so now I'm going to check on the green beans here. And as you can see, they've kind of become kind of a limp, and the fork goes right through it. That means they are ready. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep the top on, but we'll remove from the heat. Keeping the top on it, we'll keep the heat in there and keep them hot until we're ready to serve them on the plate. Alright, So now, while the beans are cooling down as well as the peppers, we're going to start the dessert. Alright, so I'm using a KitchenAid mixer because I like the power mixing, but you don't necessarily need one. You can do this by hand too. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to make the dough base. We'll do 1 cup of flour. I use unbleached whole wheat flour, but you don't necessarily have to. We'll put that in, plus 1/4 cup softened butter. Make sure it's softened. Get a spatula here. Get every last ounce of butter off of there. Alright, and then we have a 1/4 cup canola oil. It's important to do canola oil or extra light olive oil because you don't want that extra virgin olive oil taste in the lemon bars. By doing half butter, half oil, we're cutting the fat by about 40%. Alright, so we'll get some of that in there. And then finally, we'll do 1/3 cup of powdered sugar. Powdered sugar. It's important for this part of it. The powdered sugar, it makes the dough smoother, not as grainy. Alright, so now we're going to lock it. We're going to mix it until a light, fluffy dough forms. You want to start off a little bit slower so the flour doesn't burst up in your face. It'll be a little crumbly. There we go. That's a good texture right there. You'll see that it's moist, yet still kind of crumbly. I'm going to knock some of it off the head here. You'll see that it's kind of a lighter texture. Alright, so then what we're going to do, we're going to take this baking dish, spray it with non-stick spray. And we'll pour it in. Get out as much as possible. Alright. So now, what we're going to do is we're going to evenly spread it into the baking dish and press it down into an even layer. I like to use my fingers first so I can kind of push it around, get it even, and then I start taking my fist to kind of press it in. So that kind of evens it out, pushes the dough around to make it evenly covered. Alright, so then it will look about like that. Now, what's good about this recipe is that it heats at the same temperature that you just did for the peppers, 350 degrees. Alright, so we'll go ahead and stick it right in here, the middle of the rack, and then we'll cook it for about 20 minutes until it starts getting golden brown. Now we'll send it over to Julie for some substitution tips. Julie?
Hi, here's your tip today. I am so looking forward to those lemon bars made by Kevin. If you noticed, he used some eggs in the recipe. What if someone, though, is allergic to eggs or you've run out of them? Simply substitute 3 tablespoons of soft or silken tofu for each egg.
Alright, so I think it's about time for the crust to come out. Oh yeah, look at that. See, it has the golden brown on the edge, and you can even see some of the golden brown on the top. It is perfect. So we'll stick that right here, let it cool down a little bit while we make the lemon topping. We can reuse the dough bowl. No sense dirtying up another bowl. And what we're going to do is we're going to put 3/4 cup of sugar in. This time it's regular granulated sugar, not the powdered like was in the dough. Then we're going to put in 1/2 tablespoon of flour. and 3 tablespoons lemon juice, and 2 eggs. And we'll crack them directly into the bowl. Alright, so now we're going to mix it until it's kind of a liquidy yellow top. Start off a little bit slower so it doesn't splat. The reason why the eggs are in there is not really for the flavor or anything, it's more for to enhance the yellow color of the filling and then to help with the thickening process when it's cooking in the oven. You can see that it's going to be liquidy, but because of the flour in it, it will thicken up when it cooks. Alright, just mix it enough to where it's completely mixed. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to pour it directly onto the dough that you just cooked. Put it back into the oven for another 25 minutes or so. It will start getting kind of a brown top on it as well, just like the crust did. Now we get to wait, but we're going to serve up some of the dinner. So we're going to serve up one of the peppers here. And we'll get some beans on there. Just like that, voila! You have a delicious looking meal that's going to be a family favorite, plus the lemon bars on the way for dessert. Alright, I think the lemon bars are about ready. Oh yeah, look at that. See how it's kind of brownish on the outside and even kind of brown on the top there? So set this right here. And to finish it off, we'll get one of these flour sifters, put some powdered sugar in it, do it over the top. Just switch it around. You just kind of want to make it like a light snow. Just for added color before you serve it.
So Kevin, how did you come up with this inspiration for this delicious meal?
Well, it just came to me the night before this show. I was thinking, how can I pull off a good stuffed pepper with the green beans? Not everyone likes green beans or stuffed peppers, and my thought was to make the green beans enjoyable, to where the whole flavor comes out, there's a little pizzazz in there. So that's why I decided to throw in butter. Everyone likes butter, and the onions kind of add a little bit of a boost to the flavor, and then the bacon tops it off. And with them being steamed, none of the flavor can escape. It's just being pushed around inside the pan, and with the sauce, the secret was to make it completely from scratch. If you go, jarred, it's just not the same. It doesn't have the same flavor, and I don't know, I've always been big on fresh. And so it just came to me to just throw together some rice, sauce, meat, garlic. Can't go wrong with garlic. Put it in the basil, oregano, and voila, we got a keeper. I think it turned out great.
It's delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good job.
And there you go. We got a green pepper. We got garden fresh green beans and a fresh lemon bar for dessert. That's all I have for you today. Until next time, keep cooking with me, Kevin.